She was beautiful, born into a wealthy royal family. She was supposed to be the envy of every young maiden and the choice of wife for every young man. But the reverse was the case. Ulama, the only daughter of King Inanna and Queen Ugoeze of Umuaka Kingdom, was unusually fat and smelled so bad that no amount of perfume could take away the odor coming from her body. What could be the cause? The sun shone brightly over the peaceful land of Umuaka, a kingdom known for its laughter, golden farmlands, and royal pride. Birds sang on tall trees as servants hurried around the palace, carrying baskets of fruits and jars of wine. Everything looked perfect, except for one thing: the sadness that lived inside the royal household. Inside the grand palace, built with shining white stones and golden pillars, there lived the royal family of Umuaka. King Inanna was a handsome and cheerful man, respected by all. He ruled with kindness and wisdom. His wife, Queen Ugoeze, was a woman of grace and beauty, known far and wide for her generosity. They had 3 children, 2 brave sons and 1 precious daughter, Olama. From birth, Olama was special. The day she was born, the palace drums sounded all night. The people danced in the streets, singing, "A princess is born! The gods have blessed the king." Her mother's beauty reflected in her little face, and her father smiled proudly, saying, "This one will be a blessing to her people." But that blessing soon turned into a mystery. As Olama grew, something strange happened. She did not grow like other children. Her body became round, soft, and heavy. She grew so fat that even her baby clothes could not fit after only a few weeks. The king and queen were not worried at first. They thought she was only healthy and would slim down later. But instead, she kept growing bigger and bigger. Then another strange thing followed. When Olama was about 7 years old, a foul smell began to come from her body. It was not just an ordinary smell. It was strong, heavy, and disturbing. No matter how many times she bathed, the odor remained. Perfumes could not cover it. Oils and herbs only made it worse. Her mother cried. The maid tried everything, mixing palm wine with honey to wash her skin, bathing her with early morning dew, even rubbing her body with ground camwood and cow milk. But nothing changed. The smell was like a shadow that refused to leave her. Soon, people in the palace began to whisper, "Something is wrong with that child," they said. "Maybe the gods are angry." "She is too fat for her age," others added. "Maybe she is cursed." The queen dismissed their words. She loved her daughter too much to believe such things. She spent every day praying to the gods, begging for mercy. "Please," she cried, "take away this shame from my child." But as the years passed, Olama's condition became worse. By the time she was 16, she was no longer just a fat girl. She was now a full-grown woman, her beauty hidden beneath her weight and the odor that never left her body. She rarely stepped outside her room. Whenever she did, servants and guards secretly moved away to avoid her. Some pretended to sneeze. Others covered their noses and bowed quickly. Olama noticed everything. She was not blind. She saw the fear and disgust in people's eyes, and that broke her heart. Every morning, she sat before her mirror, tears running down her round cheeks. Her hair was long and shiny, her skin soft like butter, her eyes gentle and beautiful. Yet, none of these things mattered because her smell chased everyone away. "My mother," she said one morning, "why can't I be like others? Why did the gods choose me to be the one people fear?" The queen's heart broke each time she heard her daughter speak like that. She tried to hide her tears. "My child," she said softly, "you are beautiful in the eyes of the gods. One day, they will answer our prayers." But Olama no longer believed it. The palace that was supposed to be her home now felt like a prison. She could not join her brothers in the courtyard. She could not play with her cousins during festivals. She could not even attend public gatherings. Whenever she walked past the guards, they looked down or turned their faces away. The king, although he loved her deeply, avoided her too. He could not bear to see the sorrow in her eyes or smell the strange odor that filled the room whenever she entered. He tried all he could to take care of the situation. To hide his pain, he told the queen, "Leave her to the gods. They know what they are doing." But Queen Ogoeze was not a woman who easily gave up. She called for priests, herbalists, and wise men from every part of the land. Some said Olama was under a curse from birth. Others said she had offended the water spirits. A few claimed that an evil spirit had been exchanged with her soul. The queen spent large amounts of gold, slaughtered goats, and made sacrifices, but nothing worked. The people of Umuaka began to gossip. "How can a royal child smell like that?" they said. "There must be evil in that palace." To protect her daughter from shame, the queen kept Olama hidden. She made sure her room always smelt of sweet incense and flowers. Still, the odor found its way through every corner. Inside her chamber, Olama grew more lonely. She sat every evening by her window, looking at the palace garden where maidens danced and laughed. They were all beautiful, their waists moving gently to the sound of the talking drum. Olama wished she could join them. She wished she could dance too, just once, without anyone covering their noses or running away. But she couldn't. One evening, as she watched from her window, tears filled her eyes. "The world hates me," she whispered. "Even the air rejects me." The queen entered quietly and held her daughter's hands. "Don't say that, my child. One day, all this will end." But as she spoke, a loud shout echoed outside the palace gate. "I want to marry Princess Olama." The voice was loud and rough. The guards rushed out to see who was shouting. It was the village madman, Osorundu. His hair was uncombed, his clothes dirty, his face covered in dust. He stood boldly before the palace and shouted, "I want to marry the princess who smells like heaven. I want to marry the fat princess of Amaka." The guards burst into laughter. Some threw stones at him. "Go away, Osondu, you have no sense," they shouted. But Osondu kept shouting, "She is my wife. The gods told me she is my wife." The news spread quickly across the kingdom. The people mocked the royal family, saying, "Even a madman wants to marry the princess. That's her level now." When the queen heard it, she was deeply embarrassed. But that night, she could not stop thinking about his words. How could a madman know that her daughter's room always smelt of roses and sorrow? She went into Olama's room. The princess was asleep, her breathing slow, her face peaceful. The queen sat beside her and touched her hair gently. "My daughter," she whispered, "I don't know what this means, but something tells me your story is not ordinary. There's a secret behind your pain, and I will not rest until I find it." Outside, The moon hung high over the palace walls, lighting the royal compound in silver light. The guards kept watch, unaware that deep inside the palace, a mother's heart had made a promise that would shake the kingdom of Umwaka forever. The wind blew softly that night, carrying the faint smell of roses mixed with something darker, something strange, something that hinted that Olama's story had only just begun. The next morning, the palace was quiet. Even the birds seemed to sing softly, as though they knew something heavy filled the royal household. Queen Ugweze sat on her golden chair, her mind far away. She could not stop thinking about what the madman had said the day before. Every word of his still echoed in her head. I want to marry the princess who smells like heaven. She shook her head slowly. How could a man without sense speak about something so hidden? How could he know things that even wise men and priests could not explain? Her heart would not rest. She felt deep inside that there was something the world was not seeing. That morning, she went to her daughter's room. Olama was awake, sitting near her window as usual, staring at the blue sky. My daughter, the queen said softly, how did you sleep? Olama forced a small smile. I don't really sleep anymore, mother. My dreams are full of laughter and whispers. Sometimes I see faces I do not know. The queen's heart skipped. Faces? Yes, Olama replied. A woman keeps calling my name in those dreams. She looks like me but older and always crying. When I try to touch her, she disappears. Queen Ugweze stood still. She did not speak. Her hands trembled. Maybe it's just your mind, my child, she said finally, but her voice was shaking. She hugged Olama tightly, even though the smell was strong. She didn't care anymore. When she left the room, she went straight to the king's chamber. King Nana was already dressed, preparing to meet his council of chiefs. My husband, she said quickly, I cannot sit and watch our daughter waste away. We have prayed, sacrificed, and waited for years. I am going to the shrine of justice myself. The king looked at her with tired eyes. Ugweze, he said, we have been to every oracle. We have spent gold and silver. The gods know what they are doing. Let us not offend them by acting in haste. But the queen refused to listen. I will not stop until I get an answer. My daughter is not meant to live this way. If the gods have closed their ears, then I will sleep at their gates until they open them. King Nana sighed. He knew there was no way to stop her when she spoke like that. Go then, he said quietly, but be careful. Do not go alone. I will go alone, she replied firmly. The gods speak better when the heart is desperate. The king nodded slowly. He watched her leave, his heart heavy. That evening, the queen went into her private chamber where she kept the things of her children. In a small clay pot covered with white cloth, she kept each of their umbilical cord stumps, the piece that had fallen off after birth. She had always believed it carried part of a child's destiny. When she opened the pot, she found Olama's stump. It had turned to a dry powder over the years, but she could still recognize it by the mark she placed on the container. She poured the powder into a small wooden bowl, covered it with white cloth, and whispered a prayer. My ancestors, my husband's ancestors, my own forefathers, guide me. Let this journey not end in shame. She set out the dawn the next day. The road to the shrine of justice was long and silent. The sun had not yet fully risen, and mist covered the hills like a white blanket. Birds flew past her head, and the sound of the river echoed in the distance. The queen walked barefoot, her fine sandals tied around her waist. Her fine wrapper brushed against the dust, but she did not care. Her heart was stronger than her pride. People who saw her on the way wondered what was wrong. They bowed and whispered, "The queen is walking to the shrine alone." Some followed her from a distance, curious to see what she was up to. After hours of walking, she reached the great forest of Omu, where the shrine of justice stood. The air there was heavy and cold. Tall trees covered the sky, and the ground smelt of old leaves and spirits. The shrine itself was built of black stones. At the entrance hung cowries and white feathers. The priest of the shrine, an old man named Dibwezi, was sitting cross-legged, burning incense. His long white head danced in the smoke. When he saw the queen, he bowed deeply. "Mother of the land," he said, "the spirits told me you are coming. What brings you here?" The queen knelt before him, holding the bowl that contained the powdered umbilical cord. "My daughter," she began, her voice shaking. "My only daughter, Olama. She is suffering from something no one can explain. She was born beautiful, but carries a smell that drives everyone away. I have tried everything. Please, I beg you, help me." The old priest looked into her eyes, then at the bowl in her hands. "You brought something?" he asked. "Yes," she said, handing it over. "It is her umbilical cord. I kept it since the day she was born." The priest nodded. "Sit," he said softly. "The spirits must be consulted." He poured the powder onto a small clay plate, then dropped a few white cowries into it. He began to chant, his voice rising and falling like the wind. The air grew thick. The trees seemed to whisper. The queen closed her eyes. For a long time, there was silence. Only the sound of the burning incense filled the air. Then suddenly, the priest stopped. He looked at the powder again, frowning deeply. "What is it?" the queen asked quickly. He said nothing. He stood up, took the plate outside, and sprinkled palm wine on it. The wind blew hard. The trees began to shake violently. The queen trembled. "Tell me," she cried. "What is happening?" The priest turned slowly towards her. "This is not ordinary," he said in a voice that sounded far away. "The spirit inside this cord is restless. It is not connected to the body of the one you call Olama." The queen's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" The priest took a deep breath. "The girl in your palace is not your daughter." The words hit her like thunder. "Not my daughter? That is impossible. I carried her in my womb. I nursed her myself." The priest raised his hand. "Calm yourself, Queen of Umwaka. The spirits do not lie. They say your true daughter is still in this kingdom, suffering in the hands of strangers. And the one in your palace, she too is suffering under a powerful spell." Tears rolled down her face. She could not believe what she was hearing. "How can this be?" she whispered. The priest looked into the distance. "The gods say both girls were victims of evil. You must find your real daughter before it is too late. But do not abandon the one in your palace, for she too is innocent." The queen was shaking now. "Where will I find her?" "The spirits will show you," he said. "Go home and watch closely. The truth will come to you when the moon is full." That night, the queen refused to leave the shrine. She slept on the cold ground beside the altar, holding her wrapper tightly. In her dream, she heard a soft voice. It sounded like a woman crying. The voice said, "That girl is not Olama. You must look for Olama. She is somewhere in this kingdom, suffering. You must also help the girl you think is Olama, for she is under a great spell." The queen woke up sweating. It was still dark, and the fire at the shrine had gone out. She sat up quickly, her heart pounding. The words from her dream echoed again and again in her mind. "That girl is not Olama. You must look for Olama." When morning came, the priest found her sitting outside, her eyes red and tired. "Did the spirit speak to you?" he asked. "Yes," she replied quietly. "They said the same thing you said. The girl in my palace is not my daughter." The priest nodded slowly. "Then go home, Queen of Umwaka. Watch the signs. The truth will soon find you." The queen stood up, wiped her tears, and began the long walk back to the palace. She went without her guards, without her horses. She was deep in thought, her feet moving on their own. When she reached the outskirts of the kingdom, the sun was rising. Just a few houses before the palace, she saw a small crowd gathered on the roadside. Some young men were carrying a weak, skinny woman to the village health center.
The queen paused. Something told her to stop. She didn't know why. Maybe it was the same voice from her dream whispering to her heart. "Wait," she said to the men. "What happened to her?" "She fainted near the stream," one of them replied. "We are taking her to the health center. She looks like she hasn't eaten in days." The queen's eyes softened. "I will come with you." The men looked at one another, surprised. "My queen?" "Yes," she said firmly. "Take me there." As she followed them toward the health center, she could not explain the feeling in her chest. Her heart was beating fast, her hands shaking slightly. Something told her that this weak, unknown woman, this stranger lying half dead in the arms of the villagers, was connected to her in ways no one could yet understand. She didn't know that her journey for answers had just led her to the greatest secret of her life.
The queen sat quietly beside the hospital bed, watching the pale, skinny girl breathe weakly. Her heart was heavy, and her thoughts were far away. She could still hear that strange voice from the shrine echoing inside her head. "That girl is not Olama. You must look for Olama. Olama is somewhere in this kingdom suffering. You must also help the girl you think is Olama because she is under a great spell." The words refused to leave her mind. She looked at the girl again. Her body was fragile, her hands trembling, her lips dry. The queen felt something deep in her heart she could not explain. It was as if an invisible thread was connecting her to this stranger. The nurses moved around, trying to get the girl's heartbeat stable. "She has lost so much blood," one of them said softly. "She needs blood immediately or she will die." "Test mine," the queen said quickly. "Test my blood." The nurse hesitated. "My queen, we must test everyone available first." "Then test me too," the queen insisted. "My blood is not more royal than hers." The nurse nodded respectfully and took her blood sample. Then she tested others who had gathered to help, but none matched. Even the queen's blood did not match. The girl was growing weaker by the minute. One of the maids who had followed the queen to the hospital ran back to the palace to inform the king. The moment King Nana heard that his wife was at the health center with a dying girl, he left everything and rode down immediately with 2 guards. When he arrived, he saw his wife sitting beside the girl's bed, holding her hand. The girl's eyes were still closed, her breathing faint like the sound of a whisper. "What is going on, my queen?" the king asked. "She fainted near the stream," the queen replied. "The villagers carried her here. The doctor says she needs blood, but no one's blood has matched so far." The king turned to the doctor. "Then test mine," he said firmly. The doctor bowed. "Yes, my king." Minutes later, the result came back. Everyone gasped. The king's blood matched perfectly with the girl's. The queen's eyes widened. "What?" she whispered, standing to her feet. "Are you sure?" "Yes, my queen," the doctor said. "It's a perfect match." The room went silent. Even the nurses stopped moving. The king looked confused. "That is impossible. I don't even know her." But there was no time for questions. The transfusion began immediately. The king rolled up his sleeve and his blood began to flow into the weak girl's body. The queen watched with trembling hands. She could not understand why tears were rolling down her cheeks. Hours later, when the process was over, the girl's body became calmer. Her breathing evened out. The queen stayed by her side, refusing to leave. That night, when everyone was asleep, the queen sat alone beside the girl, whispering to herself. "Why does my heart feel like I know you?" she said softly. "Why did the gods lead me to you today of all days?" Before dawn, the girl stirred. Her lips moved slowly. "Please," she whispered, "don't let me go back to that house." The queen leaned closer, her eyes wide open. "Which house, my child?" The girl began to cry softly. "The man I live with. He says I am a curse. He beats me and says I was never meant to live. Please don't send me back." The queen held her hand tightly, tears filling her eyes. "You will not go back, I promise you." As she held the girl's trembling hand, she noticed something. On the right wrist was a small black mark, round and shaped like a bean. The queen's breath caught. That same mark was on her husband's right hand, a birthmark that appeared only on males of the royal bloodline. But this girl, this stranger, had it too. Her heart started to race. Could it be? No, it couldn't. But what if it was true? What if the voice in the shrine was right? Her hands began to shake. "My child," she said softly, "what is your name?" The girl's eyes fluttered open weakly. "They call me Ada," she whispered. The queen's chest tightened. Ada, short for Adaogo, a name meaning daughter of pride. The queen suddenly stood up, pacing back and forth. Everything was beginning to make sense. The strange voice, the dream, the king's matching blood, the birthmark, all of it pointed to one truth that was too heavy for her to accept yet. She sent a message to the palace immediately, asking the king to come to the hospital again. When he arrived, the queen pointed to the mark on the girl's hand. "Look, my king," she said quietly. The king looked, then slowly lifted his own sleeve. There it was, the same mark, same size, same spot. He stepped back, his eyes wide open. "My queen," he said slowly, "this cannot be." The queen whispered, "I think it is. I think this is our daughter." The king was silent. He turned to the girl still lying weakly, and tears filled his eyes. Could this really be our Olama? They called for the royal priest that same evening. The priest arrived with his staff of authority, his face serious. He looked at the girl, then at the king and the queen. After a long silence, he closed his eyes and spoke softly. "The gods have spoken to me. This girl carries the blood of the royal family. She is the true daughter of the king and the queen." The room was filled with gasps. The queen fell to her knees, crying uncontrollably. "Oh, my child, my lost Ulama." The king was frozen, his mind lost in confusion. "Then who is the girl in the palace? Who is the one we raised as our daughter?" The priest sighed deeply. "She is not your child. She is the daughter of a woman who was cursed for betraying her husband. Her mother committed a grave sin, and the gods punished her through the child. That is why the child smells so badly. The curse was not hers, it was inherited." The queen could hardly breathe. "So, the voice in my dream was right. The girl in my palace is living another's life, while my true child suffered all these years." The priest nodded. "Your kindness led you to the truth, my queen. Had you not stopped to help this dying girl, you would never have found your daughter." The queen wiped her tears, still shaking. "But how did this happen? Who would do such an evil thing to us?" The priest's eyes darkened. "Someone very close to your family. Someone who lives with jealousy in his heart. The gods say the man who did this is not far. He has been living under your protection." The queen's eyes widened. "You mean someone inside the kingdom?" "Yes. Someone who once called the king his brother." The king's heart sank. He knew exactly who that could be. His childhood friend Odour, the man he trusted more than anyone else, the one who lived in the house the king had built for him, just outside the king's gate. The queen covered her mouth in shock. "Odour, the same man who has been dining with us for years?" The priest nodded slowly. "He is the one who exchanged your child. He took your daughter from her cradle the night she was born and replaced her with a cursed child of a mad woman who had just given birth to that same night."
The king's knees weakened. "But why? Why would he do such evil?" "Jealousy," said the priest. "He wanted your daughter to live a cursed life so that your family would suffer and your throne would know no peace." The queen cried loudly, her voice echoing through the hospital.
The king's face darkened with anger, but the priest raised his hand. Do not act in haste, my king. The gods will expose him themselves. His punishment will come soon, and when it does, he will confess with his own mouth. That night, the queen stayed with Olama at the hospital. She sang softly to her until the girl fell asleep. She touched her face gently and whispered, I have found you, my child, and I will never lose you again. Outside, the moon shone brightly over the kingdom of Umuaka. In the quiet of the night, Odour sat in his compound, his heart restless. He could not sleep. He kept hearing whispers, voices calling his name from the wind. Deep inside, he knew the gods had started to expose his wickedness. And by dawn, the truth would...
The early morning sun rose slowly over the land of Umuaka, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The palace drums beat softly in the distance, announcing a new day. But inside the royal walls, peace was far away. King Nana sat on his throne, his eyes burning with anger and disbelief. The truth from the priest the night before had shaken him to his very core. His best friend, the man he trusted with his secrets, had stolen his child and cursed his family with years of pain. The queen stood beside him, her eyes swollen from crying. She had spent the night at the hospital, watching over Olama, her real daughter, who was slowly regaining strength. The false princess was still in the palace, unaware that her true identity had been uncovered. King Onana slammed his hand on the armrest of his throne. I want Odour brought here now, he roared. Let him tell me with his own mouth what evil he has done. The guards bowed and hurried out. Moments later, Odour was dragged into the throne room, his face pale and frightened. He fell on his knees before the king. My king, he said, shaking, I do not understand why I was brought here. Silence, the king thundered. You will speak when I ask you to. You are my friend, my brother. I gave you everything. I built you a home. I made you a chief in my court, and I trusted you like my own blood. Yet the gods have revealed your wickedness. Odour's head dropped. My king, I swear, I do not lie before the gods, the queen shouted, her voice trembling. You stole my baby. You exchanged my child with the cursed daughter of a mad woman. Speak the truth before the gods strike you down. The room was silent for a moment. Then Odour began to cry, his shoulders shaking. Forgive me, my king, he whispered. It was jealousy. I was blinded by it. The king's jaw tightened. Jealousy? For what reason? Odour wiped his tears with trembling hands. You had everything I wanted, the throne, the respect, the wealth, and a loving wife. I envied you so much that it consumed me. When your queen gave birth that night, I was at the palace. I came with gifts, pretending to celebrate with you, but inside, my heart was gunning with envy. The king's eyes darkened. So you stole my baby that night? Yes, my king, Odour sobbed. That same night, a mad woman from the edge of the forest gave birth too. The woman was cursed for sleeping with another man while she was pregnant. The gods struck her with madness. I took her baby and placed her in your daughter's cradle and took your true daughter away. I raised her in my house as a servant, never letting her know who she truly was. Gasps filled the hall. The queen screamed and fell to her knees, crying, You monster! You made my child suffer for years while I wept in confusion. Odour kept weeping. I didn't want her to die, my queen. I only wanted her to live in pain so that the king would never know peace. But when she became sick recently, I became afraid. I thought she would die, so I sent the village youth to carry her to the hospital. I never knew you would find her there. King Anana stood, his eyes filled with fury. You betrayed the gods, betrayed your king, and destroyed an innocent child's life out of jealousy. Odour shook his head and banged it on the ground. Forgive me, my king. I was foolish. Have mercy. The royal priest entered the hall at that moment, his staff of justice in hand.
"Mercy," he said firmly. "There is no mercy for one who mocks the gods. You cast a royal child and tampered with destiny. You must face your consequence." The king raised his hand. "Let him be taken to the shrine of judgment. Let the gods decide his fate." The gods dragged Odour away as he cried and begged. His cries echoed through the palace walls until they faded in the distance. The queen leaned against the throne, her body trembling. "The gods have fought for us," she whispered. That same evening, the royal chariot carried the king and queen to the hospital. Olama sat up on her bed when she saw them enter. Her face looked better. The color had returned to her cheeks. When she saw the king, tears filled her eyes. "My king," she said softly. The king walked to her side and knelt beside her bed. "My daughter," he said in a shaky voice, "for years I have searched for peace. Today I have found it. I am your father. You are my Olama." Olama froze, her eyes wide. My father?" The queen came forward, smiling through her tears. "Yes, my child, you are our true daughter. You were stolen from us the day you were born, but the gods have returned us to us." Olama began to cry. The queen held her tightly, both of them weeping. For the first time in many years, the queen's heart felt light. That same day, the royal priest performed the cleansing ritual at the shrine of justice. The girl was bathed with sacred water mixed with herbs and the ashes of truth. As the water touched her skin, a strange wind blew through the shrine. The priest raised his staff and shouted, "The curse has been lifted."
When the girl returned to the palace, something amazing happened. Her body no longer smelled. The odor that had haunted her since birth was gone completely. For the first time in her life, she felt clean and free. The king and queen decided to adopt her fully as their daughter, according to the tradition of Umuaka. She was named Adaogo, meaning daughter of pride. Olama and Adaogo became like true sisters. They ate together, laughed together, and were never separated again. As for Odour, the gods dealt with him harshly. He was struck with madness and wandered the forest until he died alone. The same punishments that had once fallen upon the mad woman whose child he used to destroy the royal family. Years later, when peace had fully returned to Umuaka, the people gathered at the palace to celebrate the two princesses. Olama, now radiant and strong, smiled at her sister and said, "If not for our mother's kindness, I would have died." The gods rewarded her good heart with truth. The queen smiled, her eyes filled with pride and gratitude. "Kindness is a seed," she said gently. "No matter how long it takes, it will always grow and bring good fruit." And from that day, the people of Umuaka learned to be kind to everyone, no matter how small or poor. For they remembered how one act of kindness from the queen had saved her lost daughter and restored peace to their land. Moral lesson: be kind to those around you. You never know which act of kindness the gods will use to bless or save you.